Hi, I'm Alice,
I'm Deborah Monroy, a photographer based around the Atlanta area.
and I'm retired in North Florida. And what's so great about being able to do this together is that we can be in different locations and be able to talk about the I Ching predictions for 2025. So, this workbook that Eve through Sanctum with Eve has put out for this year actually gives us an opportunity to share our experiences and just talk about some of the reflective questions and things in the book.
So the I Ching starts out, it's a kind of guide, and it's got to be fairly open-ended because each person, I would imagine, is going to interpret things a little bit differently. So we'll see how we interpret the advisement for March.
I just want to review really quickly. We're talking about in the book, chapter 6, which is March 2025, letting go, liberation, release. That's what the heading is. And I will just read the first couple of intros to set the space. As we step into March, remember that the energy of this time may not begin precisely on March 1st. So that was useful because I was noticing that there was a shift of the collective energy starting in February sometime. And I thought maybe I was a little off. But I think that the energy shifts and things are always changing. So this is not like a rigid March 1, boom, March 31st, boom, it ends. But have an awareness around things may change for you personally. And it may seem like you've already started March, the end of February. That's okay. Or maybe February bleeds over into March a little bit. You feel like maybe you got a late start, but no, that's just how it is. Would you agree with that?
Sure, I tend to think that this process is open-ended and it's not held to a fixed state. There's just the general March energy that happens basically in March and maybe before and after March as well, but just a general kind of entity that's going to happen. We call it March. And so that's what we're focusing on. So we happen to be there right now.
That's right. We're headed towards the end of it, actually. So, March energy could flow into your life during the final days of February or linger into April. The timing is less about dates and more about your personal experience feeling the energy shift. And I think we're talking about that. You will know this energy has arrived when you find unexpected good fortune as a collective energy. And that I think is the important thing. This is for the collective and not a personal oracle or whatever. As a collective energy, good fortune might be for you, your community, or the world. March is a wonderful time to aim high and work towards that aim. And then the caveat to it is the I Ching cautions that others will envy and even oppose your success. There are some in your circle who would deprive you of your accomplishments. You may also find that others have altered some of your plans without your agreements. That may or may not have been intentional. It is, however, an invitation to explore where you might need to set boundaries with some of your friends and colleagues. The energy of March is about letting go of rigid expectations and releasing your grip on plans that no longer serve you. Let go of outcomes tied to family, friendships, work, or other areas where you are tightly wound. First thing that comes to mind, Deborah, is that reading this today, since the events of last week occurred in my life, I would say that's exactly what happened is that there were things that happened that I did not expect or altered my plans. Actually, more altered my plans. And that was the surgery that I had for skin cancer on my nose. I had an expectation that it was just going to be like some other procedures that I'd had. and it would be like a no big deal. Wrong. I
Mhm.
got to let go of that. I had to let go of that expectation. I had no option. And I noticed that after the procedure, which took a slice out of the entire side of the right side of my nose, that I've had to alter my schedule. I've had to alter expectations of what I could do. I've had to alter some of my plans, my sleep habits, etc. So, in that respect, when I look at what happened, I could have been upset, been out of shape. Oh, poor me, whatever. But I just realized what there was to do was to go with the flow and adapt and have it be fine and every day celebrate a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. Have you noticed anything for you?
I was thinking along a similar line where my work schedule has changed. It's at the end of my work week, I work from 5 in the evening till 9 in the morning the following day. And I don't want it to be permanent, but I was looking forward to having my sleep schedule disrupted and just seeing what would happen. And various things have come about. Finally, after 2 weeks, I've gotten to the point where I can actually function on a few hours sleep after essentially staying up for 24 hours. Instead of sleeping for 24 hours, actually sleeping 7 or 8 hours and then resuming my life, which is pretty cool. I was also hoping that it would disrupt my sleep cycle so that I would try and possibly remember dreams more because I tend not to remember them. And actually, I don't remember offhand, but I jotted down the dream that I did recall, which was pretty interesting. The dreams happen at a deep part of my sleep cycle. So, generally speaking, I literally sleep through them for the most part, but occasionally one of them escapes the deep end of the cycle, and I have this great personal movie to review. So, that's been an interesting change out, but it's also a great shift and a tremendous energy shift as well, which is allegedly going to be finite. It's, in fact, last week was supposed to be the last of that, but that was a huge change in my schedule.
So I think when I look at the end of March, it's
Mhm.
always a summary page. The takeaway is letting go of control and for release rigid expectations and trust the natural unfolding of events. So I know that was, I think, what I was trying to articulate when I was talking about my expectations around how I was going to be after I had surgery, what it was going to be about, what it was going to look like, and all. And just letting go of that and going with the flow and adapting and having it be okay. And I think what's different now and what I'm finding useful about reading this, it just puts it top of mind is that in the past, I may have had some upset around it, some more anxiety, and just felt crushed about, oh, is this going to disfigure me? That hasn't even shown up. It just is what it is. And that's a shift for me from wanting always to be in control and plan things out and they're going to go a certain way and stuff like that.
I think it takes too much energy to be in control all the time. That's my take. But a phrase that I jotted down was trust. Trust in the trades of energies, or say trust in the trading of energies, because you may lose some. I may lose some personal energy, but see more energy outside of myself in the collective. But more to the point, it led me to wonder what the relationship among control. What's the relationship between control and trust? What's the relationship between control and trust and blessing? Because essentially, letting go of control, I have to trust that is going to lead to a good outcome eventually. And it's going to be potentially a kind of blessing. But there has to be that trade off between the control issue and the trust issue. And then hopefully leading to a kind of blessing out of that trust.
That's great.
That was just my interpretation. Looking at the end of March, the March takeaway, those 4 points that you mentioned that happen on page 44.
So the first one we talked about letting go of control. You want to talk about any of the others?
Setting boundaries is always a challenge because, especially as women, we're expected to be accommodating, and it's certainly a good mindset. But setting boundaries, well, having the skill to set boundaries, that's something I'm working on so that we don't just say, could you please shut up? You want to say, can we have a moment of silence or something along that line? Being socially skilled enough to set boundaries without driving people away.
Did you find that your situation in number one, the letting go of control with the change of your schedule at work and stuff, did it also impact setting boundaries with the expectations of management and stuff like that in the situation you found yourself?
It did actually, because the first schedule change that was proposed just did not work for me. And I said, that's just not going to work. And there was a compromise, a different change. And so I'm happy sometimes have to just take that risk of saying, no, it's not going to work.
So you
Which is,
actually got to implement that, the setting of boundaries.
I did come to think of it. It happened before I was aware of it, but I'm glad it happened that I was able to negotiate for that change. The third item, aim high with integrity, pursue your goals with thoughtfulness and care, especially when others are involved. That would actually reflect back on setting boundaries, learning to be diplomatic in setting boundaries. The boundary is something that has to happen, but the way that you present it can be more or less agreeable to your audience. You want it to be accepted, preferably without a big conflict generated.
That's right. How about with yourself? It ends that part about protect your energy and your plans from those who may act without your consent. You handled that in terms of your negotiation and set boundaries with yourself.
That's true. Setting boundaries, I'm sure that has happened as well. For one thing, I made a huge change in deciding not to drink coffee anymore, as opposed to daily, maybe once, twice a week. And that's kind of goal where I have aimed high because coffee has been a huge social part of my life. Blessedly for me, there's not a whole lot of physiological addiction. I haven't gone totally crazy, but I have made that decision that there are other breakfast drinks that are better for me than coffee. That's an enormous change. The social aspect of coffee has fallen away too, going to one coffee shop or another. And I tend to bond with people and form these relationships, friendships, which are very wonderful. And they're also variable too, because people turn over. There's a change. People even come and go. Although I've been fortunate, some of the people that I know and really have been in place literally for years in the same shop. So that's going to be a lure to get me to drink more coffee at some point.
Do those shops offer you the possibility of having an alternative beverage that
Yeah.
meets what your new reality is?
Technically, it does. I don't know about you when you walk in and you feel that really total full sense surround of coffee. For myself, forget it. Herbal tea is just not going to cut it. You're technically right. I could get some sparkly water. I could get black tea or green tea, but nothing has that fullness, that 360-degree embrace that coffee does. So if I walk into that shop, I'm going to be aiming a little bit lower with respect to setting boundaries for myself.
The last point for March is to embrace freedom. And this is a time to let life flow. And I just feel that's been something for me I've noticed. I haven't quite described it, letting life flow, but I just feel like my life has enlarged and I'm just living present and rolling along, which I consider just letting life flow and things show up in it and like things happen and it's just going along.
It's going to happen. It's going to flow. You can resist or go with the flow, like they say. So, yeah, I agree. Try to negotiate the flow to the best of your ability, letting go, holding on. It's an ongoing dance. It's a real juggling act that we're asked to do.
And here we are at the end of March, and the last part of the chapter says, "You will know the energy has shifted when things begin to get done." And that's the part for moving into the energy of April. Have you noticed any of those shifts in the collective energy?
That's an interesting thought because what is getting done in my community is a huge renovation of our main street. It seems to be moving forward. It's enormous. It's the main artery in and out of the city. So that seems to be getting processed. Although I think the work's not going to be completed until 2006, which is somewhat out there, but it does seem to be progressing. It's a huge change every time you come and go from your home. You're going through this war zone, and that work seems to be rolling forward.
I'm glad you mentioned that because around here we had those two hurricanes this year and one last year. And there was still a lot of debris and things on the side of the road, even from last year. And I just noticed today it's clear. It's gone. It got handled. And then we had 6 months of the major roads coming into Madison that were getting resurfaced, redone. And today I was driving and all the road signs were down about construction. There were no people out waving you down. It was done. I was looking around and it was no potholes, just cruising along. It was like, wow, you're right. When you look around in the community, things have been getting done. I would say we're getting ready to move into April.
I think so. I think we're good for this session. In between March and April, there's the first quarter collective energy check-in. Maybe we could do that next time along with April. Maybe we could use that to introduce April.
That sounds great. Anything else you want to add?
No, no, I appreciated your stories. That illustrates what the book is talking about.
Yeah. For those of you who are interested, this is the book. It's available on Amazon and on Eve's channel. She has a link to it if you're interested.
Here.